Hi, my name is Annie Scanlon and I'm Director of the Resource Platform. At Resource, our mission is simply to make it easier for more corporates to procure renewable energy. Could you please introduce yourselves, please?
Thank you, Annie. I'm Zosia Riesner and I'm Director of Power Markets in EMEA for LightsourceBP. And we've been signing PPAs with corporates for nearly 10 years now. And in 2023, for the first time, we've signed new PPAs in Poland and Greece. So 2 exciting new markets.
Hi Annie, hi Zosia. I'm Guillaume Drupret, the Energy Market Director at Akuo. Akuo is a French independent power producer with 1.7 gigawatts in operation and construction.
Guillaume, what do those buyers need from this market design file? What could the institutions adopt, which would then really help the wider European market?
To develop this PPA business, we need a steady and transparent regulation. This will bring more liquidity on the market, and this will allow to create a framework between buyers and producers to come together and set the proper contracts so that they can secure energy prices in the future. This type of contracts can even be from one country to another, thanks to cross-border PPAs, for example, because the demand is not always at the same location at the production. So it could be a way of bringing people together and bringing countries together in PPAs. And I think that the best efforts should be made to attract investors on these particular aspects. And that should be done thanks to the transparency of the regulation. And with all the players involved, we shall develop PPAs in the right way.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think what we've got to remember is there's a different state of maturity of the PPA market across Europe. Some markets are very familiar and very enabling, and there are still some barriers. So I think we need to continue to focus on identifying and removing those barriers, whilst at the same time, I think it's very positive that markets have a range of routes to market. There is a place for CFDs, there's a place for merchant exposure, there's a place for PPAs, and we need to ensure that that level playing field exists and in no way a PPA is crowded out of the market.
And when you were talking to your customers, what kind of barriers are you hearing about in different markets?
Certainly, coming back to your earlier point, the emergency measures, whilst necessary in an emergency, can be quite challenging, particularly where we've seen different price caps applied in different ways across different markets, and sometimes those price caps applied in ways that are incompatible with long-term virtual PPAs. So there's been some examples where that's been very challenging to step through.
Because you mentioned you're entering 2 new markets, was there something particularly about these markets that actually attracted Lightsource to invest there? Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so what makes the market attractive for LightsourceBP is if you've got a fairly broad and diverse range of routes to market. So cross-border PPAs are fabulous because they sort of enable and broaden. You're not concentrating on the demand only in one country, but equally we like a stable and active power market, and we like the availability of CFDs so that there's that diversity, so that investors with different risk appetites potentially still interested in that market. We've got to remember not every investor is looking for long-term stability or merchant exposure. We want to be able to take advantage of a range of options.
So it's really that flexibility that attracts investment to countries. So member states, I think, take note of that. As especially as we see in the council, we have this discussion between France and Germany about this CFD design. It's so important not to remember all these other routes to markets that really bring that investment and then help corporates decarbonise at the end.
Yeah, and I just sort of to add to that, 2 of the new markets I mentioned where we signed PPAs this year, Greece and Poland, both fairly new markets and quite challenging. But we've been able to work together with the buyers, and I think it's very much the collaboration between the buyers, the developers and the investors to try and find a route forward through those challenges.
Because it's a win-win-win for all of these parties involved, and everyone wants to get on board and really accelerate this, and we just need this right framework in place to put an end to these emergency measures, put in place that long-term system that we can all happily work within, and then we have all these success stories that will start coming out more and more.
Yes, I agree, and I think flexibility is a key word, actually, because if you put mandatory measures, such as a kind of CFD that is mandatory for everyone, I think at some point you prevent players from being innovative and from building hybrid schemes, PPAs plus CFD, cross-border PPAs. So if you rule out innovation, I think you rule out part of the added value of renewable energy in the grid.
Yeah, and I think that's, part of this conversation we've been having is the brilliance of the collaboration between developers and corporate energy consumers and industrial through the PPA. It's a really elegant solution, bringing together, those consumers and the generators to find a sort of unregulated solution, and that creates an environment for creativity and innovation.
I think also let's not forget, and something I think the public finds very interesting, is obviously a CFD, any kind of support scheme, that is public money being used to subsidise new renewables projects. If we have other routes to market, that's private capital that's coming in and building projects that's going to benefit the whole of society.